All
Okay,
right.
Jason, let's talk about all of the things that people need to know about condos and townhomes because there is so much confusion and misinformation out there, and buyers and sellers really need to know.
Yeah. There's quite a bit. There's some changes coming as well. We've talked about SB 326. That's a relatively new thing as well, so we can touch on that too.
Yeah.
But I mean, the biggest takeaway really with all of this, with everything going on with condos, is just understanding that as a buyer, just because you're underwritten and solid
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean you can close on the condo, because there's so many, there's so much regulation now in underwriting, with conventional financing in particular,
Yeah.
that essentially the HOA is being underwritten as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have found in working with buyers and sellers that there's a lot of confusion with, are the condos financeable? Are they, and what is a non-QM loan, and what does that mean? Is that taboo, and how does that impact buyers?
Yeah, I mean, the non-QM financing or non-warrantable or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like, oh gosh, what does that mean? It's non-warrantable, right? It just means that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not, they're not approved with them.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
Well,
what the
why would you
non-warrantable
want-
piece means.
First, for like the layman, why
Yeah.
would you want Freddie and Fannie to back it?
I mean, they're great options because they're low down payment. Interest rates are better.
Uh-huh.
You don't need reserves. Like financially, you can make the purchase happen a lot easier.
Okay. But you can get loans for for places that don't go through Freddie and Fannie. You can get non-QM, you can get non-warrantable.
Yeah.
You can get them for like under 20% potentially.
Mhm.
But what is that going to depend on? And is there a scale? Are there some places where you need to put a minimum of 20% down? Does that depend on how the financials look for the HOAs? How does that work?
Yeah. I mean, they're not as strict,
Mhm.
right? So, like if a complex is not, like if you can't do a conventional loan right now because of the balcony inspection and the repairs aren't done yet, you might be able to still do a non-QM.
Okay.
As long as, I mean, they're still going to look at it,
Yeah.
right, and make sure it's
Not falling down.
somewhat safe. It's not
Yeah.
falling down or anything, but they just don't scrutinize it as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have found that a lot of buyers out there tend to look at, okay, what's the lowest price I can get into the market at for the nicest place in the best location? And sometimes, while that formula seems wonderful, that also could be like a red flag, because if you see it for such a low price, there may be something lurking underneath the surface.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't know because you're not going to be privy to the HOA's financials. So you don't know how well the association is being run and managed and how their financials are being handled and what their plan is moving forward for any maintenance potentially, or what are they setting aside for, any unforeseen things happening. You just don't know. And then you get all excited and you get into escrow, and then you hit a roadblock in underwriting because of the HOA, not even because of you.
Yeah. And obviously we've worked on some of these deals before, but like, what should we be doing as real estate agents and advisors to help prep our clients? Because you're right, like it's emotional and it's oftentimes overwhelming to be in the escrow process. But you're in escrow, you're trying to do your thing, you're trying to be responsible and pay your money for your inspections and all of these things. And then something comes up that maybe would have been helpful to have had foreseen earlier on. So, I mean, obviously everybody's trying to rush. If it's a good place, they don't want to miss out and delay. But what sort of steps can they take to try to be as ahead of financing issues as possible?
I mean, when you're in the offer stage,
Mm-hmm.
It's a great idea to ask the seller or the seller's agent if they have any of this information.
Okay. And
specifically, like, hey, do you know, SB 326, the balcony inspection that's, required by the state of California now, that's a really big one.
Yeah.
And that one's going to continue to be, probably an issue for the next couple years, potentially for some associations. Finding that out up front. Hey, do you know if the inspection was done? And if it was, do you know anybody on the board, or have they completed the repairs? What does that look like? I have noticed more agents are being proactive if they're going to be getting a listing.
Yeah.
And I've even gotten some questions from agents as well. about like, hey, can you check to see if this complex is on
Done that.
like Fannie Mae's approved list?
Yeah.
And if it's not, can you check FHA? Can you check VA? Just so they can market it appropriately, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And beyond that, basically any information that a listing agent can get up front, they probably should be anyway, again, so they can market it appropriately.
Right.
But that way, you kind of know what you're getting into, right?
Yeah. So there are so many misconceptions out there that we see. I know, for example, another one is that condos and townhomes oftentimes will have a higher interest rate than like the going rate.
Yeah.
And that's something I know we've talked about it, but a lot of buyers may not realize that. And many buyers are very price sensitive, budget sensitive. So if you have to calculate for that and add it in, and you're also looking at HOA dues and all of these factors that change the playing field for what your payment's going to be, it's better to kind of know that up front.
Right.
Yeah.
The condo thing. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around as a buyer. Like, why do I have to pay a higher interest rate on a condo just because I'm less than 25% down on a conventional loan? And it's because it's not just the buyer's risk that's being assessed. It's also the HOA. It's not just a single family home on a plot of land that you own, right? There's the whole, you own a portion of it with the whole community.
Yes.
So there's more factors that go into it, and that's why they assess a higher risk to it, right? And generally speaking, it's about, on conventional loans, like a quarter of a point higher in interest rate, more or less.
Okay.
If you want to remove the fee, it's a fee that they charge, with Fannie and Freddie, and it's 3/4 of a point. So in order to not pay that fee, you can, you get it built into the interest rate, essentially.
I see.
So you are paying it because you're paying a higher rate, right?
Yes.
It's just not out of pocket.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted to pay it out of pocket, right? But more or less,
most people don't. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a 6% quote on a single family home at no points, and you want that same rate on the condo and you're less than 25% down, it'll be 6% charging 3/4 of a point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for sellers to realize, or not even sellers. I think it's important for homeowners and condos and townhomes to realize what is happening, because even though you may have no intention of selling, it's still really important to have a good idea of what's happening around you. One, for your own value of your own property, because unfortunately, when financing becomes troublesome or complicated, it can impact the values of what places are selling for, because you have more of a restricted pool of buyers.
Right.
And so when you have less buyers, it's supply and demand kind of comes into effect. And that's part of the reason that we have seen some condo and townhome values come down a bit, whereas you'll watch single family home values maybe go up in a certain area, even in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
So we are seeing that. And then also when we know that there are balcony and deck inspection, possible repairs and all of that, HOAs may not have enough money set aside to do all of that right now. So then assessments come into play.
Special assessments, yep.
And I've seen a number of communities where we'll see, a decent amount of activity all of a sudden. And, is that people that want to sell to avoid the assessment, or maybe not even to avoid it, but just because it starts to feel like the value's not there for them.
Right.
They're like, okay, I'll have to suck this one up, but who knows what's down the road. So I want out now.
Right.
So as a homeowner, it's really important to know like the health of your current HOA and the finances, and really look at those reserve studies that they send out and be a part of, not saying to go to every meeting, but at least have an idea of what's next, what's happening here. And then if you do have like any intention of selling, maybe it's a good idea to attend some of the meetings or get on the board and just like you said, just be more aware. So that way, when you do go to sell, you're going to have a better idea of what you might be up against. Because if it's bothering you, then there's a good chance it's going to bother an incoming buyer too.
Right.
So we have to get ahead of all of that.
Yeah. And I don't know how many HOAs are out there that are like keeping up on everything, like, or if they have like a dedicated person to stay up on all the changing guidelines for different financing. Probably not, right?
I don't think that that's their forte. From the HOAs that I've spoken to, it's often, unless it's a newer community, it's oftentimes challenging to even ask them, do you know if this is FHA approved or VA approved? They oftentimes don't know.
Yeah.
So then we're doing the homework, which is fine. That's what we do. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's their specialty.
Yeah. Or even not wanting to release the balcony inspection report to lenders, right? Like, okay, well, this is now a guideline for conventional financing and you guys marked off that there's an inspection that's been done on the lender cert. So we have to review that report. And I mean, I think was it, I don't know, I can't remember. Was it your seller who, they wouldn't release the report to the seller. They would only release the information for their unit, right? Yeah,
and you need the entire community because that plays a role. It's a whole collective, like you said. It's like the whole complex that you're buying into.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one reason that people are, I'd rather wait and buy a single family home and I'll wait till I can because then it's all in my control. And yes, I mean, that there's that, but the getting into the financial place to be ready for a single family home is going to be a big step up as far as the financing goes. Yeah,
well, it'll be interesting to see how things shake out moving forward, especially with some of the additional changes coming up. Because it is getting stricter for condos, and
tell us more. We need to know.
And I'm curious to see like how HOAs handle it with their already somewhat high HOA dues, right?
Yeah,
because a lot of HOAs are underfunded, and it's actually the limits are now being increased. So one really, really big thing that's going away is the limited review.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if you're like 10% down or more, you can potentially, like when you run it through their Fannie Mae's automated system, if you get, hey, we just need a limited review, well, now we don't have to dive into all of the financials of the HOA.
Okay.
Right. It's just a limited review. So we don't need to necessarily review, like look at the reserve study or things like that. Right. That's all going away now. So
when is that going to affect now?
In August.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think a number of lenders are already implementing it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really important to have a better idea because I know a lot of HOAs that are in the red. Severe chance of, financial hardships here.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other piece that's changing as well is the minimum requirement used to be at 10%, funding at 10%. It's now being bumped up to 15%.
Oh. Okay.
So, and now that the limited review is going away completely, if it's not already on Fannie's approved list, that just means that there's been financing that's been done in the last like 6 to 12 months or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
If it has and it's just on Fannie's approved list, then we're okay, right? We don't need to get anything really. We don't even need a lender cert. It's on the approved list. So it's either that or full review.
But what happens when something's been on the approved list for, let's say, 12 months? Obviously, things can change with the HOA. At what point does Fannie step in and say, okay, time to re-review and maybe we boot you from the list? Does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's only for a short period of time. And then it'll just say it's expired. Yeah, which means there hasn't been, a full review financing for conventional loans done in that time period. And then you just have the next one that comes in, full review again, right? And so then that'll reset it. Yeah.
Is it usually a year?
Yeah, I think it's about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's changing. It's either approved list or full review.
Okay.
Then when you do the full review, the 10% allocation for reserves is now up to 15%. So if the HOA, and a lot of HOAs struggle to even get to 10% right now.
Yeah.
So if they're not at the 15%, now we got to dive into the reserve study.
Okay.
And then previously, when you look at the reserve study, they may recommend a certain percentage, but we used to be able to still use the 10%.
Okay.
We could go off of the lesser of the two. So now not only is it going up to 15%, but if the reserve study says, hey, this HOA is underfunded and they should be funding at 20%, we have to go off of the 20%, not the 15%.
Okay.
So it's even higher for that HOA.
So if the HOA doesn't hit that threshold, let's just go with 15% because that's going to be the new one. So then they wouldn't be able to go with Fannie Mae or Freddie, or what is the alternative?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to struggle. I mean, we will look at everything else as well.
Okay. Because I know like, even in terms of like they've been talking about for buyers getting financing, like they're going to be more open to looking at different types of income and looking at different components of the credit score and not being discriminatory. So like it seems like they're opening up some pots to make it more available, but then shutting off other
Yeah.
doors.
Yeah. I mean, this probably isn't likely if they're already underfunding, but if they were under the 15%, but then we look at the reserve study and they're like 75% funded for what's recommended,
Yeah.
probably going to be okay with that. Right.
How would a seller know that up front? Would they? Yeah. I mean, if you're, so say I'm Sally and I'm about to list my home, and I have a condo and I want to get out of town fast. How do I check on this? Do I submit it to you? Do I?
Yeah, or your realtor. Maybe order all the HOA docs up front. You're gonna have to pay, the seller's gonna have to pay the fee for that.
Yeah,
more than likely.
They'd have to pay for it eventually.
They'll eventually pay for it.
Yeah,
but that's one way to do it if they'll let you order the HOA docs up front.
Yeah,
and you can review it yourself or have your realtor or lender or whoever else review it and give you an idea of what to expect. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's really important for this information to be out there regardless, because, not every professional is going to do things the same way. But, we all know that uncertainty is like the number one rule of life. Like, there's always going to be uncertainty. But as much as you can try to prepare yourself and have the best course of action mapped out that you possibly can, like that gives you a little bit more insight into how the next, 2 to 3 months might go when you're trying to sell a place and move. And it's a lot of big things happening in your life. Yeah. Well, I will say that there's one magical community in Costa Mesa, Monticello Townhomes, where they're PUDs.
That's true. Yeah.
And talk about PUDs. Why are PUDs great for finance?
Yeah. So that I actually if I have clients that are looking at condos or they want me to price something out, I'm like, let me check and see if this one's a condo or a PUD. I get really excited when it's a PUD.
Yeah.
Right. Because PUDs are treated as single family homes when it comes to underwriting.
Fantastic.
Right? We don't need to get anything from the HOA. All we have to verify is what the monthly HOA dues are.
Okay, I'm going to step in as a novice and just throw this.
We should say what a PUD is.
What is a PUD?
Oh, yes. What is a PUD?
Because right now I'm just imagining eating potato.
Okay.
Me in right now.
Okay, we can talk about that. I'll just start that little part over and then we can kind of wrap up if there's anything else you want to throw in, we'll do that.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. So there is one magical community in Costa Mesa that I like to talk about called Monticello Townhomes, where they look like townhomes. They're literally called Monticello Townhomes, but they're classified as PUDs. You want to talk about PUDs?
Yeah. So PUD stands for a planned unit development.
Mm-hmm.
They're technically they're assessed and zoned with the county the same way as a single family home, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's not a condo, even though you're, I think 99% of the time, probably 100% of the time, paying an HOA.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not considered condos. So when it comes to financing, we treat them as single family homes. Yeah, so you get the better pricing on your interest rate because it's priced out the same way. And you don't have to we're not scrutinizing all the HOA docs. We don't need the HOA docs.
Yeah.
We just need to verify what the monthly HOA dues is when we're calculating the borrower's qualifying payment.
Right. So you don't have to worry as much about SB 326 coming into play because that's just for condos and townhomes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are some magical communities out there like that. And in fact, when I lived in Tribuco Canyon for a little while, I was in a legitimate house area. It was all houses, but we were zoned as PUDs.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was also confusing for the lender at the time. But it was, it's interesting. And we do talk about PUDs a lot, and we should definitely call them planned unit developments. But regardless, the good news is that financing wise, they are easier.
Yeah, they come in all shapes and sizes too. Because Monticello, for example, they look like townhomes, kind of, or you would think that they are, right? Because it's all attached.
Yeah.
You go out to Riverside County, there's a lot of planned unit developments out there that are just single family homes, but you're going into a neighborhood association or whatnot.
Yeah.
Or you get the ones where two homes that share one attached wall, right?
It's my other place in East Side Costa Mesa.
And I think there's a lot in Westminster as well. Probably all over, but that's the example I can think of.
We just need to rezone some of these places.
Yeah, but those they have HOA dues because there's some sort of an association managing and maintaining the
common area.
The common areas and whatnot. But no issues on the financing side, which is great.
Okay, so buyers out there, this is something you should look into a little bit more closely. And I will say that the MLS, the multiple listing service, is notorious for having this information inaccurate. So you can always reach out to myself or your agent or Jason just to get clarification because it's very confusing, but it can all be tracked down. You just need to know what you're looking for.
Totally, yeah. And if you are still looking at condos, definitely talk to your realtor, talk to your lender, make sure you're asking questions, getting it all explained to you, because it is getting more difficult on the financing side. There are still options potentially. We didn't touch too much on like FHA, VA, but just because something conventionally might not be able to get done, that complex might be FHA approved. That could always be an option
to me, because it feels like FHA would be more restrictive, but
you would think. But I mean, I see ones where it's FHA approved. There's another realtor I work with right now has a listing coming up in Long Beach. The complex is only VA approved.
Okay.
There's no chance conventionally because of the critical repairs required from SB 326.
Oh, VA would let that go through too?
It's currently, because once a complex is VA approved, it's always VA approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
VA approved is really good.
Yeah. So if it's VA approved, you're good to go. I know it's a smaller pool of buyers. But then that one, like, people do spot approvals in that complex.
Yeah.
Because it's not FHA approved.
Okay.
But it would be if the association just took the time to submit all the documentation, more than likely, But there are options out there aside from the non-QM space, potentially, especially for first-time home buyers or lower down payment. FHA could be an option as well.
Yeah, one of my very first sales ever was one of my good friends, Debbie, and she was buying at a time when it was so highly competitive. This was, I want to say it was like 2011 or 12. We were just kind of coming out of the short sale cycle. So it was like she could either buy a short sale or she could buy something else. So we found something else and she really liked it, but she could only do FHA at the time. Like that was the payment and option that was going to work best for her. And the community was not FHA approved. And we figured it out. I mean, we had somebody, like there's actually a concierge service person who helped get the spot approval.
Oh, yeah.
And it took like months for all the documentation, but that was like her job, was just getting the documents and submitting it, because the HOA didn't have time to do it. They didn't want to. But she made magic happen. Like, honestly, that probably snowballed into helping so many other buyers later get into that community, which I'm hopeful that it did, because I'm sure it did. It's just amazing but all it would have taken was just like some paperwork.
Yeah, I'm sure it did help, because whether it's the spot approval or the whole complex, it's pretty much the same documentation that you need to submit.
Nice.
To get it FHA approved. It's just more expensive.
Yeah. To
get an entire complex approved versus, doing the spot approval. I mean, not terribly so, but I mean, somebody's got to pay for it, right? But yeah, that's definitely something to consider as well. And if you have listings coming up and you know that people have done spot approvals recently, at least you can confidently say, as long as there's not too many FHA loans in there, you can confidently say that that's an option as well, right?
Oh, wow. Well, yes, next time we'll have to talk a little bit more about that and how to determine if it's like worth it to go through those extra hoops for the buyer and the seller.
Yeah.
The seller would have to be willing to wait and kind of take that gamble too.
And if you have a cooperative HOA that can get you the documents that you need to submit in a timely manner, it shouldn't take more than like 3 weeks for the spot approval now.
Good.
So you can kind of build that into your offer that you're writing, and at that point, once the spot approval is done, you can issue the case number. You can kind of fast track things, and ideally, you've got the buyer already underwritten, and then it's really not that much more than maybe like a 35-day escrow.
That's very manageable.
Yeah, pretty manageable. Yeah,
great. Yeah. Well, yes, the world of condos, townhomes, PUDs, all of the exciting things, and the changes to come. If you've bought or sold a condo before, or you're thinking about it, there's just a little bit more intricate information you need to know. So we're always happy to help with that.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you're up to speed on all of that, and just have the right expectation being set. Like, I'm going to offer on this condo. I understand that the association essentially is being underwritten as well.
Yeah.
And we got to get past all of that. That way it's not, there's not like this severe like disappointment or whatnot, and like it just, where did this come from, right? If no one tells you, then it's it's not going to feel good. But at least going into it, if then you can prepare and have maybe a backup plan or whatever the case is.
Yeah, don't put your notice in on your rental.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Holly.